Hello, and welcome to our weekly LinkedIn Live leadership series, Voices of Leadership. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Kathy Eastwood, your host and founder and CEO of E=Y. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leadership, featuring voices from various generations, industries, and backgrounds. A team's job is to deliver the results. It's the role of the leader to make sure that happens. And there's a repeatable formula to drive that success, the E3 Leadership Code. Express plus engage plus execute, powered by emotions. But each leader's approach is slightly different and it's unique, and there's no mold to fit into. And that's why we love to interview different leaders and hear their point of view. So this is a live session, so feel free to introduce yourself, let us know where you're dialing in from, and also please ask questions. We are happy to answer them as we go along. So our guest today is Tony Sumpster, the CEO of Provar, and someone whose leadership journey has been closely intertwined with mine for many, many years. I don't know how many years, Tony, but it's been a while.
Yeah, probably 14 or 15. It's a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tony and I first worked together as peers at HP Software, and later had the opportunity to work as his chief people officer in his first CEO role. Since then, we've been continuing to partner across different companies, building leadership teams and cultures in very real, very demanding environments. What has always stood out to me about Tony's leadership is his deep belief about results, that they can't be driven by individual effort alone. They are really driven by leaders who trust each other, who build strong relationships and genuinely have one another's back. That belief and that work we did together around it is something ultimately that inspired me to start E=Y. So today's conversation is really going to be grounded in lived experiences. What works, what breaks, and what leaders must get right if they want their teams not to just work hard, but to work hard together and deliver amazing results. Tony and I are often talking about the importance of trust. You can't hire trust. You really have to build it together. So we're going to start right there and jump in. And Tony, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
And I'd
you.
love to ask you a really tough question. What is the definition of trust when you think about it and we say we have to build trust?
Occasionally you need to go back to foundations to really get the way that you describe something, and I make sure you understand it fully. So I did that this morning just to remind myself, because it's a very easy word that's bandied around, and I think people abuse it in many ways. But let's go back to what does it mean. So I've got three definitions here. The first one is it's a firm belief in the reliability. So that's somebody, something, systems, whatever, but firm belief in the reliability. Another way of saying that would be do what you say, right? I believe you. I've got firm belief that if you say something, you're going to do it. And that's fantastic. Another way of thinking about it, and this fits into the emotional intelligence piece of the E3 code, is sense of safety. And sense of safety is, can I express myself in a way that is vulnerable so that I can truly get across how I feel without any ramifications, other than the person on the other end of the conversation is willing to support and guide and put me into a place where I can feel comfortable to achieve what I want to achieve, whether that be personal or in the professional world. And then the last one of the three that I've got for you today is consistency over time. And the definition here is about repeated behaviors that show integrity and competence. And again, if you come back and you sort of start to blend these things together between the personal world and the professional world, you end up with this very interesting thing, which trust becomes really the foundation that lets relationships function without any constant doubt or fear. Now, there's a flip side to that. And the flip side is when trust breaks down, why is that? And what do you do about it, right? So in what way does trust break down? Well, so, it could be that that somebody is fearful to disclose that they've made a mistake. We all make mistakes. I can tell you as a CEO, I make more mistakes than most. That's sort of part of the job, right? You need to get out there and do things. You fail to deliver. Okay, well, part of this about being reliable and having a firm belief is about reliability. And the other one, and this is one that you and I have often talked about, which is we both believe that people turn up every day and they act with good intent.
Yep.
And then occasionally they don't, right? And that's a shame, but it does happen. So where people act in bad faith. So we've got both sides of the equation here on trust, which is firm belief in being reliable, a sense of safety, so you can be vulnerable, so you can have great conversations, and consistency over time. So you're reliable. When I ask Kathy Eastwood to do something for me, I know it's going to be done. I don't need to think about it. I can go, Kathy, we need to do this. Let's get it done. Thanks very much. I'm going to move on because I trust you. And that's a really important piece of the jigsaw about the way we do things. Another way of thinking about it is this blend, because we are not just an automaton that is, I go to work and I get home and there's nothing in between. I've certainly never managed to achieve that. I'm sure there are people who are very good at, they walk through the door and that's great. But if you think about it in a personal sense, it's like, personally would be emotionally reliable. Right? I am available. I am here for you. I give my, if you're married or you have a partner or you've got children, I am yours, right? And I'm willing to take part in your journey and do all those things. Professionally, it's about functional, being reliable in that way. When we say we're going to do something, we deliver it. When we say that we are going to go for that big goal that's scary and that's, but hey, we could do this. And you and I have been in this situation many times where there's difficult situations, and we'll get to what trust means in a difficult situation in a bit. You put that, so emotional reliability, functional reliability, you put the two together, and then you get into this situation, you go, okay, well, what's the overlap? And the overlap is character. Okay, is what happens when no one's looking, right? And as you and I both know, principles never matter until they do.
Yeah.
People talk about them, and it's only when it really matters, something that line you won't cross. So if that's the definition of trust and the breaking of that trust, how do you get into a conversation with teams and new situations, the rest of it? For those who don't know Kathy and I, we, as she said, we've known each other a very long time. We worked together at HP Software. It was my first, I'm a Brit, by the way, if you hadn't noticed, but I live in California, so, and I've been here a long time now. She was part of my journey about, really learning how to function in Silicon Valley and, do all of that. We learned together how to take organizations that were sometimes struggling, that lacked for some particular reason. They lacked vision, they lacked courage, they were demoralized, they had maybe functional challenges, such as maybe the code wasn't working very well, the product was buggy, like the sales team had lost its will, there was no vision that could be stated. And at some point you have to come back to something which is about how do you correct those things. And I've spent most of my career for one reason or another in that role, in that how do you correct things that are not quite going as this. And it's a piece that I personally enjoy. I find it intellectually stimulating, and I find that if I can combine my intellectual curiosity, and as Kathy will tell you, I'm a very curious person. Yep. Then we can tie the intellectual curiosity about why things don't work and how I can repair them with the very human thing, which is you can't do it alone, right? The best way of getting a result is finding a way of getting an organization, a set of people, a team to work together on things. And at the core of all of trying to do those things, you come down to something that enhances your ability to execute, and that is trust. Kathy, I'll pause for a minute. And
there's so much to unpack in that one, Tony. As you're talking, it's interesting because we've known each other and worked together for so long. I can almost guess what you're going to say. Like, and when we get on a different project and I already know, but that took time, right? And I think about, we had to be deliberate that first time that we really worked together, because it was back at HP Software, we had the teams coming together, a lot of different new faces, new directives, new leadership team, and people didn't really know each other, or we had a lot of assumptions, right? And I remember the scenario when we went into the desert. And I mean, literally, we went into the desert, right? For a kumbaya we were around the fireplace. I had brought my nephew's webkin, Eddie, and he's up on my thing over there. But we really went and had a long conversation with each other of what our fears, uncertainties, and doubts, what our experiences were. And we started to realize that we were a lot closer to similar values than we realized. And once we started to build that relationship, we're like, oh, wait a minute. So how they're showing up is not how they intend to, and I'm misinterpreting it. So that's how I remember that event, and I'm sure I have different, but I remember the day you said to me, Kath, where's Eddie? And you grabbed Eddie, put him on a cactus and took a picture, and then the CTO comes running over, right? And he's like, oh, and let me get the shot. And all of a sudden we were rallying behind a stuffed animal. And that started to break down the silos between all of the teams. And that's when we started to be a team.
Yeah. And so I thought for the team on the who's on the other side of the camera. So this is Eddie. Eddie has been all over the world. I have an Eddie. He sits by my monitor at home, just so you know. The program was called Align with Eddie. And this was a team. This is a big team, by the way. This is probably people in the total group. And the leadership team were brand new. We had really a power-packed leadership team, more PhDs you can shake a stick at, very, very bright people. We were fortunate to work with such a team, but we were new. And what was interesting about that time in the desert, where Eddie really came into the focus, was that for some reason, and I can't quite place why we did this, other than we have a facilitator there, but why we each chose to be vulnerable at that moment, I can't remember. But I can tell you that we all did, including myself. And that for me was a bit of a catalyst moment. It was one of those moments where you realize that the vulnerability and the believing in trust in your fellow man or woman is actually a very powerful catalyst to the way that you move forward. And so the program's called Align with Eddie. Eddie came into meetings with Meg Whitman. So we used to meet with Meg as part of HP Software, and Eddie would turn up, and that was quite a bold move. That was quite a bold move at the time. It could have gone very wrong, but didn't. She thought that was great. It was a focus. It was part of the rally. It was part of the rest of it, and it gave people a human element to be able to work with, so that when we were delivering messages, some easier to consume than others, some were hard. We had to restructure. We had to do various other things to get the organization to function correctly, but we as a team felt confident that if we said something, everyone knew we were coming from good intent, because we trusted each other. Because if we went back to that definition we had earlier, we had belief that what I said was going to be true, that I was doing it from that I wanted to make sure that my fellow colleagues and team members were in the best way possible safe, and that when we said something, we were consistent. And so that was the first time, even though I was probably in my 40s, I was probably early in my 40s, but that was our aha moment for me. I didn't quite cry eureka, but it was definitely an aha moment. And that was the point for which I think Kathy and I both looked at you where we understand that we are closer to each other than further away. And for Kathy and I, and one other actually, so big shout out to Jackie Old in Scotland. The three of us, particularly because we started to work on transformation projects together, we had an intense trust in each other. And that team was then used again and again and again to push through transformation projects across, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of activity, to increase revenues, to get our profitability to be better, to be more focused around what we delivered as products, so salespeople could sell it better, marketeers could market it better, etc., etc. So align with Eddie. If you see that stuffed lion, it has that one there. It has big meaning for me. I think for Kathy too. Given we both still got it, like X years later, that started from this thing in the Negev Desert in Israel. Super fun.
And when you think about it, Tony, I mean, that's what we built a lot on from there forth. We realized how important trust was because we often found ourselves getting into those difficult situations. And, when you're trying to drive change, you're asking people to go from point A to point B, and logic doesn't always work, right? I think logic is important, but if you don't have people emotionally bought in, they're not going to move with you or as quick as you need them to move with you.
Yeah, and that's it's that meshing of the business reality that things have a rhythm to them and a time to them. We've got a time period to get something done, a quarter, a half year, a year, whatever the time period is. Or these days even less because we're in a scary, fast-moving world again. The key piece is how do you get people to emotionally engage with it? And here's where we come into something else, which is and something that when I left HP Software, and that was a decision to see whether I could become the person I wanted to become in the future. I thought I could be a CEO. I thought I was intellectually curious enough. I had enough EQ that I could, thought I could deliver. And I guess I'm on my third CEO gig, so something worked there. But when you take all those things away and you start to build trust, it's like, okay, how do you gain trust in that environment? What's the thing that you need to do? And my first CEO role turned out to be a turnaround. I don't think we quite understood that. At the time. We were both working in private equity. There was a new acquisition had just been done, new investment had just been made. I was on the board originally, and then it was like some things were not quite right with this particular business, and so I stepped in to help out, which I did for about 18 months or so. And I brought Kathy with me because I needed people I could trust. Again, you come back to who can trust. And this was a situation that, through no fault of anybody else, really what was going on was you had a number of businesses brought together very quickly. You had some issues around some financial issues, which I won't go into. But the core body of the business was not yet a business. It was 5 separate businesses under a banner. That's a very inefficient way of getting organizations to take advantage of being together. Is you can share systems and you can share data. You can have sales motions that can benefit each other. You can upsell and you can cross sell, and you can really find ways of utilizing the resources of the business. And so what became very clear there that there was lacking a why. And you'll hear both Kathy and I talk about this a lot, is that if you want somebody to trust you, you better explain why they should trust you, why that's so important. And you also need to put it into a context of both the business context. The business needs to achieve this much profit. Its revenue needs to go like this. We're trying to raise some money, so the financial profile needs to look like this. The product quality is not where it needs to be. But if we could do that, we could improve our churn. In this particular case, it was more about how do we take these 5 separate things and make them into one, so that our customers could understand what it is and who they were dealing with. So the why was really, really important. And getting that emotional attachment to both the business side and the what's in it for me, because we often forget that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy as a CEO, CFO, chief people person, the rest of it. But if you're a young intern working in, a remote office, and this disembodied voice comes, thou shall do better, you wonder what it's got to do with you, right? Because you don't know, right? And it's leadership's job is to explain why it matters to you. And in fact, one of the things that you and I, Kathy, have worked on a lot is including massive spreadsheets that I shudder on this day, but go like, here are the primary objectives for the business, and here's why an individual, and all the way down, up and down, you can go to you intern, software engineer, renewal salesperson, whoever you are, you can identify what you do day to day and why it matters to the overall company goal. And sometimes that needs to be really simple. And we built a very simple one at the beginning, very simple one at the beginning in this particular company, which was happy people and happy customers equals great results. And it sounds a little cheesy. It does. But I've got to tell you, it worked. It did. It worked because people understood it. People could get their arms around it. It wasn't this highfalutin, intellectual thing. It was very basic, is that we want our employees to have the best experience that we could do. If they do that, we think that will, and through changes in process and policies and systems, all that sort of stuff, that will enable them to deliver a great result to customers, which will make them happy. Right? And you know what happens when you got happy customers?
They buy more.
They buy more. it's wow. It's a miracle, but they do. But they buy more because they're getting great service, and people feel it. Again, that emotional thing about when you turn up with energy, people feel it. They immediately feel it. You turn up with, oh, I'm not really sure I want to be here, and life's hard and all that sort of stuff. Which of course we all have those days, by the way. So it's not a perfect world, but if you can do that and exhibit that when you're talking to a customer or a partner or whoever, what you find is that they're enthused and they pick up on it and they absorb some of that energy and like, hey, if these people are really happy about what they do, they must be delivering a great service, and I really quite like that. I want more of that.
Yeah, and Tony, like a lot of times, I remember the first time I showed you one of the slides and I put a big heart on the slide and you were like, are we putting a heart on a business slide? And, we started talking about a lot of it. That I'm results driven, right? I'm very much, we've got to drive results. But I think what we've really learned over our career is how important it is to bring the people along in that journey. Because if you're just trying to tell people what to do, you might have a short-term result and you might have to do it at times, but from a long-term perspective, you're losing innovation, you're losing productivity from people, you're really losing amplifying all of your team to pitch in and help deliver on those results.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, it is the job of the leadership of a business is to take as many obstacles out the way as you can, to hire the best people that you can, to give them the best opportunity to succeed. Make sure that they understand why what they're doing matters, why they matter. And I'm a great believer in, and then get the hell out of their way, right? And let them, and be there, of course, be there to mentor, be there to develop, be there to guide. When things go wrong, be there to go, okay, what did we learn? Not, hey, that was dreadful, blah, 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 because you can, the fear piece of that jigsaw is a very easy card to play. It just is. The harder thing to do is to acknowledge, hey, listen, we made a mistake. We, not you, we made a mistake. We are going to learn from it. We're not going to do it again because doing it twice would be bad. But doing it once, that's called learning. That's called experimentation. You try things, some work and some don't, and that's okay. So I do think that the importance of making sure that each of us can communicate well about the why you matter, what's in it for you, and you align that, and you do it consistently, and you make sure your messaging is consistent, your behavior is consistent, particularly from a leader. You got to say it. What's that? Talk the talk, walk the walk.
Yep, exactly.
Well, it just happens to be true, right? If they see you behaving a certain way, people will often just go, he said it and he's doing it, or she's saying it, she's doing it. And when you do that again and again and again and again, and sometimes in a very bored, rote fashion, the reality is that people believe what you say because you are who you are. You are, I had some words that were right at the beginning of when I was thinking about trust, and they are, integrity, reliability, honesty, consistency. Now they just happen to go with the trust words as well, but they are words that I live and die by. Being authentic.
Yeah.
People notice, and that all boils itself down. I mean, there's lots of words there, but it all boils itself down into trust. Is when you say something, you mean it, and it's more important when it's bad, right?
Yep.
We are living in an incredibly interesting time right now. AI. So I'm in the software business. I work for this company up here, Provar, fantastic company, by the way. If we are in a time where there are challenges everywhere, both macro, both new technology challenges, things like AI and all that sort of stuff. It is more important than ever that you and your team understand that, one, there are going to be challenges because there's this external stuff going on that's affecting you. There's the internal stuff about how you cope with that. But the more focused we are about having that trust means that when things do go wrong or we get challenges that we weren't expecting, there is never any doubt. And that trust also appears itself, and you also see people's character when times are tough, right?
Yeah.
What we were saying before,
that's the
personal, emotional reliability, it's that character piece. And I think more important than ever, if you can build a team that does that, if you can build a team that in good and bad, in sun and rain, that whatever happens, we're going to turn up and we're going to do the best we can and we're going to deliver results because we trust each other, you're onto a good thing.
That's
and
the power.
more likely than not, you will succeed.
Yeah. It's being able to weather the storm. And if I may, I'd love to translate some of your words into the E3 leadership code, right? Because you talked about where are we going, the purpose, why are we doing it? That's expressing that in vision. How do you get everyone on board? You talked about buy-in. So you have to engage the people. This is a people business. Whether we like it or not, it's a people business. We have to speak the language of them and bring them on. You used another word, consistency, over and over again. Operational excellence. You can't just say something and hope it's going to happen, right? You got to keep going back to it, and that's the execution. And what we've been talking about throughout all of this is that element of trust that amplifies all three of these. And if you don't have that trust, you're not going to deliver the results, which is ultimately what we're trying to do. I mean, yes, we all want to take care of people, feel good, but we're trying to deliver results as a team. And it's the leader's job is to make that happen. So I love your stories. And, it's the experiences that we've lived that's helped drive, this methodology because it's repeatable. But you have to use it and you have to be deliberate about it. So, Tony, there's a couple of questions here, and I know we just have another minute, but I do want to address Hems. He's asking, if forced to choose, should a leader prioritize trust over ethics or ethics over trust? Which comes first?
Wow. None of us should break a line we don't agree with. Again, Meg, I didn't understand this at the time, but I learned so much from Meg in the end. It's just, honestly just a huge amount. And there's some really classic PR stuff. If you don't want to see it on the front page of a newspaper, and your mum not to be okay with it, don't do it. So I think ethics first, because values, your core values, who you are, how you believe, your integrity, is the heart of who you and the way you exhibit yourself, but also how you make decisions and what lines you won't cross. Again, principles matter when they matter. Up until that point, they're just words. So ethics, then trust.
I agree. I think that builds the trust, right? When people know that you have the values, you're going to stand the line, that's how they're going to trust you. They know you have their best intention. And it all starts with intention. So I'm going to finish with, I'm going to put you on the spot for one last story. Sorry, because one of the things, trust is so important to you. And we were doing an exercise, I'll never forget this, where we were starting to build trust among the executive team, right? And you approach every scenario from, I trust you first. That's your natural tendency. That's who you are. But not everyone else does. A lot of other people approach situations with, I'll wait and see, right? Give me a chance. But one of the things you shared was telling your team that that's how you are. You trust first, so that they understood your word. It wasn't just words, you meant it, and that's how you're showing up. And so from your point of view, how important is it to tell other people your intentions up front, how you show up, how you like to work, and how you want to interact with other people?
Again, I'm a Brit, so you know, we are naturally reserved people. We don't share feelings because you don't. You grow up that way. I have learned to share my feelings. It is way easier to have a conversation with somebody when they understand exactly who you are. It is the fastest route to get to where you want to get to, and that could be a hard conversation or an easy conversation. It doesn't matter. You know, I believe in this. This is what I'm trying to achieve. Here's the why I'm trying to achieve it. Here's the way that I will approach it. Here's what you get. Like it, don't like it. For me, it was part of the unlocking of me. It was like there was a ceiling, and when I understood that vulnerability about the way you communicate, about how important, how other people absorb that, and then can function with it. That was like really taking a barrier away or a ceiling for me. And I've grown, and I continue to grow, to be honest, because I have deeper conversations with people that allow me to get to be more curious, which allows me then to keep growing and and learning. And we truly are in a very interesting time, and I mean that in a very positive sense. We are in a fantastic time right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, we need everyone on board working together, and we can all accomplish amazing things. Well, Tony, I know you are a very busy man, so thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate this. You really have had a huge influence on me and where we are at E=Y. So thank you so much.
Very happy to be here.
Thank you. And to our audience, thanks so much for joining. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to either Tony or I. I'll probably answer a little bit quickly because he's very busy. But we're passionate about this and helping leaders succeed. So thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Kathy.